Hi, my name is Rohit Juneja, and I work professionally as a spiritual counselor, personal growth mentor, life and relationship coach, and do things like past life regression as well. But I'd like you to get to know me at a more personal level. Many of you have met me at different times of my life, but I'd like you to get to know things about me that very few people know. So I'm going to start you off by a little introduction to the little boy that was born and was 1 year old. That was me. And I know we've all had our baby times. In this picture, you can see me crying over a birthday cake that was shaped like a train, and I was very attached. Didn't want anyone to cut it, and I was resisting and fighting. Why are they cutting my cake? And later on, there I am with my dog that I had for a little while. And from there, I went on to become a teenager. Now, teenagers, like all of us, and I'm sure you too, we've had our different things that we were into. Some were into drinking, some were into drugs, some were into whatever. But for me, the passion that I had in my life was a search for meaning. I wanted to know what the heck was going on. I would ask my father and other people, why do you work so hard? Like, you're going to die and leave it all behind, so what's the point? It just didn't make any sense to me. I wanted to know the purpose and meaning of life. Why are we here? What is the soul? What is God? Why do these religions fight with each other? But people didn't have answers for me, at least the ones that made any sense. I read a lot of books during that time and remained very unsatisfied, would argue with people, discuss, and whatever I could to get my hands on anything that would help. So that search for meaning resulted in me going from becoming an engineer, which is what I was supposed to become. In India, you kind of became either an engineer, a doctor, an accountant, a sort of business person. That was pretty much it. Anything else was not considered a very high value. Anyways, I went on desiring to become a filmmaker of all things. And because I didn't like what they were offering in India, I came to America. I came to the San Francisco Art Institute on the grandest adventure of my life at the age of 19. And that's me. This is a pretty lousy picture, but yes, I had long hair, round glasses, kind of like John Lennon, I think, a beard. I was a free spirit, finding ways in which to explore through the media of film what life is all about. But that wasn't quite satisfying me. And a year later, my parents came to visit. And something very unusual happened. My mother and I were driving back from New York down the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And while driving, and it was about 5 a.m., my mom had gone to sleep in the passenger seat, and I fell asleep. That's right, while driving. But something unusual happened while I was sleeping. I started dreaming. I was in this deep dream of being in a temple and looking at a form of Krishna, and there was this deep feeling of peace that came over me, like I was safe, like I was protected, like nothing could harm me. And suddenly there was a thud, and I heard this car kind of hitting against something, and I managed to steer and pull and sort of stop the car. When I got out, I was on the side of the freeway, right next to the railing. I noticed the car was slightly scratched, but as I looked past that railing on the side of the freeway, I noticed a steep incline. Had we gone down that, both my mother and I would have been dead. In that moment, these words came out of my heart or soul or something, and it said, "God saved me." I was shocked. I would never have said such words. I was an agnostic. I didn't believe in anything. I used to say that unless you can prove it to me, I won't believe it. But here I had something miraculous that had happened. A couple of months later, this whole thing went like in high gear from here on. I was 20 years old and I became a monk. Yes, that's me in the picture. I stayed celibate for a couple of years, then I realized I just couldn't do it. I was interested in girls, and so the guru that I was following at the time said, to me, get married. And that's what I did. I got married to someone who I had never met in my entire life. We met the day we were to get married. We went on to have a wonderful daughter who is so precious and dear to me. She is my rock. She's the most amazing person in my life. But at that time, when I first held her, as you see in that picture, I had no clue. What do you do with a child? I had never been around a little girl or a little child like that. And so that began the journey of learning everything from parenting and psychology and self-help. And I moved on through quite a process. If you see in this here, seeking to be a filmmaker at first and becoming a monk, then getting married and becoming an entrepreneur. I moved back to India from the US and had my own art gallery. And a few years later, a friend of mine said to me, "Why do you do this? You spend most of your time helping people with their problems. I think you should do something about that." And the whole option of being a therapist or a psychologist, it had never occurred to me. But I was still terrified. I had no training. So I went on to, or in that kind of work, so I went on to start a child development center. Because I'd been working with parenting now, I had a pretty good idea. I'd been learning and studying, and I began to teach and began to work with kids, and I started a whole institute like that. A few years later, by the year 2000, I began writing. I had learned to quiet the mind. I'd learned to listen to my inner voice, and the words that were coming out, I was writing them. It was so inspiring, so beautiful, that by 2002, I gained the inspiration to leave everything behind, all the business, everything behind, and just trust that a new path was opening up for me. I began to trust the universe, God, that I would be guided, that I would be taken care of. And in that process, I went and got some training to be in spiritual psychotherapy and became a counselor, a coach, a mentor, which I continue to do till this day. I wrote a couple of books in the past few years. One of them is called Loving Soulfully. I also wrote another one called God, You Sexy Devil, which we can talk about some other time. Of course, now I'm starting up my online webinars and courses and YouTube channel and all that kind of stuff. So welcome to all of that stage of my life, and I really appreciate you being here at this time. Thank you. And I look forward to staying connected with you.